what makes people connect to a great piece of art is they see something that's relatable, but it's said with specificity, right? So there's a point of view,
Mm-hmm.
but they're talking about something that on some level everybody understands.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, you can't get more specific with a point of view than, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a good painter or a bad painter, but a brushstroke is like a fingerprint. You know, it's
Yes.
it's a part of your soul, and it's undeniably you in some way. And if you're a great artist, you can infuse your observations from your human experience in a way that people can identify and recognize that, but it's also has a personal specificity to it.
I thought that we were stronger.
Hello, you beautiful and wonderful people. I'm your host, Yoshino, and welcome to Artist Decoded. This is episode number 51, and in this episode, my good friend and master painter, Baugh, and I have a great conversation with director Duke Johnson. Duke is best known for his Academy Award nominated feature film entitled Anomalisa, which was released in 2015, directed alongside one of my personal favorite writers, Charlie Kaufman. And as a director myself, I got a lot out of this particular episode, and we touched on the serendipity that occurred for us to even put this episode together. Duke was taking one of Casey's classes on painting, and I met with Casey while he was in town for the week, so we ended up discussing this, and we put it together, and it just happened so organically, which is what I love about this. It's an amazing experience to be able to talk to people of such high caliber about their work and their process, and I'm really happy and excited to be able to bring this episode to all of you lovely listeners. In this episode, we also discussed the kismet that occurred between the collaboration between Kaufman and Duke, which is a really fascinating story to hear. And one of the main subjects we discussed was the intersection between art across different mediums and how learning a different medium can enhance your perspective as an artist. If you'd like to donate to the movement, the cause, which is Artist Decoded, go do so at www.artistdecoded.com, and any sort of donation is greatly appreciated. If you'd like to review the podcast, go to iTunes and leave us a nice review. Let us know how we're doing and let us know if we can change anything. So here it is, episode number 51 with director Duke Johnson and Baugh.
Don't have the place, don't have the mind to do the thing, to live the life. I gotta be alright to love you, babe. You don't have the time, don't have the place, don't have the mind to do the thing, to live the life. I gotta be alright to love you, babe.
Thanks for joining us here. It's we're here with Baugh and Duke Johnson, and thank you so much, man.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, we can pretty much just talk about anything. It's not like, there's no like strict
Open format.
Yeah, it's very much of an open format.
I feel like I have to sit like this.
Yeah. Everyone sit in this position. We're gonna do a prayer.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, hanging out in Burbank,
California.
in Duke's office.
My office.
And for those of you who are not here, it's basically oddities, an oddities shop. What can I say it is to really throw people off? We're sitting in a hot tub right now.
Yeah. We're all sitting in a hot tub. There's electronics everywhere.
Yeah, it's precarious.
Yeah.
Very precarious, but also very Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. So yeah, I mean, I was able to check out, two of your films, your short film Marrying God and Anomalisa, and both were fantastic. I mean, especially Anomalisa, I think. I mean, what was it like, I guess just starting off, but how did that collaboration happen with Charlie Kaufman for that film?
Yeah, it's a long story. Let me see if I can condense it.
Simplification. We talked about this in class.
Yeah.
5 hours later.
Speaking of class, do people know that I just took your class?
Oh, yeah,
Should we
this
mention
is-
how we met?
We should definitely mention
Mention that.
Yeah, I was teaching an oil painting class here and a charcoal class, and had this one student pop in who kept sort of messing everything up, and it happened to be Duke. No, he took both of my classes, and it was really cool getting a chance to know him and talk about sort of the overlaps of film and art, and something that I'm extremely passionate about as well. And and here we are.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Casey's work. He's like my favorite contemporary artist.
Thank you. Well, you know, it's a big
amazing.
honor. It's a big honor for you to be here.
It really is. I've never felt so honored.
No way. No, this is like such a thrill for me. I love like so much of painting for me is inspired by movies and film and the whole industry and the way it works. It's like one of my first passions, and we talked about this too. So it's like really cool for me to be able to see someone making films and any way being inspired by not only art, but anything, my art. I'm like, oh God, okay. So what I'm doing does matter in some kind of way, you know?
Yeah.
I like that.
It's kind of an interesting validation to have.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, to have like people of multiple talents, like being drawn to like, or wanting to take one of your classes.
Well, it's one thing too for the big banker to purchase a piece, the investment banker to buy a piece and stick it in his storage unit. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, he's doing it for the money. Is what I'm doing really making a difference? And then we have someone who pops around like creating their own art forms and something, they're inspiring everyone else too. So it's like, and then when that person comes in and is inspired by the work, then it's this sort of like snowball effect.
Yeah.
That does validate.
Yeah. But also, I mean, I think it's pretty interesting too, because I know that you're a big film buff,
Absolutely.
Casey. And for us to be sitting here and talking to Duke,
yes.
and then it's all kind of like coming together in this weird way as well. That sort of like interconnectedness and that love for film. I mean, it's all right here too. And then Duke being, inspired by you in a way. And then, I don't know, it's cool, man.
It's cool, man.
It's cool stuff.
It's how it works.
Yeah.
I feel like as an artist, you kind of go through and it's a combination of taking in your environment and your human experience through your senses, and that infuses your art. But it's also all the things that are inspiring you, all the other art that you've seen and that you've accumulated in your unconscious,
exactly.
That you bring with you, and that infuses your work as well.
Exactly. And, there's something really interesting and cool that, I don't know, I feel like there's this sort of like gravitational pull or just some sort of like something within the universe that kind of like brings us together, not to get all like weird and spiritual about that, but just how, like, for instance, Casey, we went and we were doing karaoke, right? And we went for dinner and drinks, and he's like, this guy, Duke Johnson, took my class and he did this film, Anomalisa. And I was like, oh, okay, I think I've heard of that film. And then I went, you can look up anything on your phone. And I was like, oh shit. Yeah, I've heard this film. I haven't seen it yet, but I really, that would be awesome if you can come onto the program. And then and here we are.
Here we are.
All because of karaoke.
All because of karaoke.
Our love of music.
You guys should demonstrate. You should do a snippet.
Oh God, he will demonstrate. I will not demonstrate.
What was the song you picked the other day? Which one was it?
Sex Pistols, Anarchy in the UK.
Oh, whoa. That's hardcore stuff.
That's fun. Yeah, it's fun.
Some good 90s jams.
Usually it's like Aha or something.
Yeah.
Take on me.
Well, Anarchy in the UK, you can just kind of scream and you can sound like shit. So, so it's a perfect song for me, basically. But yeah, I mean, I guess to segue back into it. So, Anomalisa, like, how did you, Charlie Kaufman, begin to work on that project?
Actually, there's a perfect tie-in to what you just said about spirituality and drawing things together.
Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah. Let's hear it, man.
Here's the story, and I apologize for people who have heard this story before, because I did press for the movie and I've said this story before.
It's cool, man.
But this is a true story, and this is really how it happened. So, okay, so I went to NYU film school, and I graduated, and I was a struggling, aspiring filmmaker in New York, which basically meant that I was waiting tables in New York. And for my 24th birthday, I went to see Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in theaters.
Yeah.
And it just really blew me away. I mean, it had a really strong impact on me. It was like, that's the kind of stories that I want to tell. That's the kind of filmic experience I want people to have with my art, And I left the theater, and
Great film.
I spoke out loud to people that I was with, like, my dream in life is to direct a Charlie Kaufman movie. The crazy thing is,
That's awesome.
at the time, I was friends with a guy that I met because he was a customer at the restaurant that I waited tables at. He was like a bar fly and came in every day. And he was a writer, comedy writer, and his name's Dino Stamatopoulos. Dino Stamatopoulos worked on the Dana Carvey show with Charlie Kaufman back in the day. And they were friends. And I didn't know this.
That's
so
crazy. Yeah.
the collaboration between Charlie and I, it took 10 years to get to the point. I actually turned 34 during the making of Anomalisa. But it was already in the works. I didn't even realize it because it was Dino
Whoa. That's
that
insane.
brought Charlie and I together ultimately.
That's amazing.
That's insane. And then that's how the collaboration with Dino happened then.
Yeah, so Dino
Kind of.
and I became friends, and then I came out to LA. Dino left LA after 9/11 because he had a little kid and he was freaked out, and so he moved to LA and he had a show called Moral Orel, which was a stop motion animation show on Adult Swim.
I love that show.
Oh, great!
Yeah.
That was my first professional directing job. Was that
Yeah.
show.
Nice.
So
wait, what was it called again? Moral
Oral.
Moral Orel.
Oh no. The short that you directed based off of Moral Oral.
You mean Beforel Oral?
Yeah, that one.
Okay, so Beforel Oral came much later. Moral Oral was the series that Dino had, and I moved out to LA to go to grad school. I went to AFI, and Dino and I had kind of lost touch for a couple of years because I was going to grad school and he moved to LA. I stayed in New York, and I invited him to my AFI thesis premiere of the short film I made, Marrying God.
Oh.
And he
cool.
saw that and said, and the weird thing is Dino and I were friends in New York, but we were just friends. Like, I was an aspiring filmmaker. He was a writer, but I was like, in my mind, I was like, I'm not going to do the kind of stuff that he's doing. Like, I want to make
because it
auteur
was
films.
like animation or?
No, I didn't. He wasn't even doing animation at the time. He was just a comedy television writer, pretty much. He's famous from things like Mr. Show, and he's one of the primary creative forces behind Mr. Show and Dana Carvey show, and he won an Emmy for the Ben Stiller show. And but I wasn't interested in really like sketch comedy TV stuff. So it worked out perfectly because our friendship was like a sincere friendship that wasn't based around any kind of work collaboration.
Yeah, cool.
But then when he saw my thesis film, he was like, I see you can direct. You want to do an episode of my TV show? And I was like, yeah, hell yeah. I just graduated from film school,
Yep.
So it was in the second season of Moral Orel, and he's like, if it gets a third season, you can do an episode in the third season. So I ended up hanging around the studio and following him around and kind of shadowing him for about a year and a half and kind of learning the craft of stop motion and stuff. And then I directed one episode in season 3, and we hit it off, and we just had this great chemistry, and it ended up being one of Dino's favorite episodes. And so then when Dino got another series, he was like, hey, do you want to direct that? And we just ended up working together, collaborating on everything. And then Dino's friend Dan Harmon had a show called Community, and then they were going to do a special episode, stop motion Christmas special. And then Dino was like, hey, Duke should direct that. And then Dan was like, oh, sounds good. And then so we started this studio, our own studio, Starburns Industries, in 2010 to do the Christmas special for Community.
Oh, wow.
And then that's just how it started, snowballed.
How cool, man.
Yeah. And then in 2012, I think it was, right after we did Beforel Orel, we did Frankenhole, a series called Frankenhole, a bunch of stuff. And then, it was a new studio. We're looking for things, you got to keep the lights on. It's like, well, what should we do next? And Dino was like, oh, I don't know. There's this idea and I have this idea. And he's like, oh, I have this Charlie Kaufman script and there's this, and I was like, what? Rewind. What are you talking about? Charlie Kaufman script. Charlie Kaufman? I mean, literally, I didn't even know that he knew him up until this point. And I've been friends with him for 12 years or something. So I read the script and I was blown away, and we had dinner with Charlie, and Charlie was like, yeah, sure. If you can get the money, we'll do it. That's how it happened.
That's crazy.
Nice.
Wow. You just put it out into the universe and it came back to you 10 years later.
I mean, that's exactly what happened, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, especially, like during that time when you lived in New York, fresh out of film school. I mean, did you ever think that would happen, a collaboration like that?
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed there's always that gap between aspiring to something and it happening, you know, and it seems so far away. I had this other kind of weird light bulb moment recently when I was at the Oscars, and I remember, I think it was the 95 Oscars, sitting in my home, sitting in my living room in St. Louis, Missouri. And I think it was Whoopi Goldberg that was hosting the 95 Oscars. And so it finishes and it's like the end. And her sign off is she turns to the camera and she looks right in the camera and she says something, I'm paraphrasing, but along the lines of, "Hey kid, sitting at home in front of your TV, watching this, you can be here. These are all just people. You can be here someday." And I was like, I'm going to be there someday.
Yeah.
Like, I believe
that's
that.
Cool.
Just her saying
that's
that
so
to
cool.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was like, "Duke Johnson, look at me."
I mean, that's what
You're
it
gonna
felt
be
like.
here.
You know, I felt like she was talking
of
to
course.
me.
Yeah,
I
man.
was the kid she was talking to.
How cool.
Yeah.
How cool is that, man? So, for those who haven't seen Anomalisa yet, how would you best describe the film? If you would like to describe the film.
It's about 90 minutes long.
And that's it.
It's
Go watch the film.
It's an animated film that's not for kids. It's R-rated.
Yeah.
It's a Charlie Kaufman movie, so it's complex, but it's also very simple. You know, it's about a guy that has difficulty connecting with people, and then he makes a connection with somebody, and it's about that connection, and it's about connecting.
Yeah, I thought it was. No, I thought it was. I thought it was really interesting, you know, because you can tell that this character can't connect very well with people, and he has trouble connecting with people. And there was that one scene when he finally made this connection with Lisa, right?
Yeah.
And then they're sitting there at breakfast, and then, you know, she's doing these mannerisms that he's not really, that really bother him. So he's like trying to control the situation and stuff. And so for me, it showed, I don't know, kind of how complex his character was, but also how kind of oddly neurotic his character was as well. But yeah, I mean, like you described it, it's very simple, but there's just so many human elements to the film, and it's something that everyone can kind of connect with.
Yeah, I was watching one of the greats talk recently. There was a special on HBO with the Graduate director.
Oh God, yes.
Oh man,
Mike Nichols.
Mike Nichols. Yep. So HBO just did this. I mean, it was on HBO. I don't know if they did it, but it was a great like documentary where he gave these talks and he was like giving lectures to students, and great sound bites, gems you can pull from him. But one of the things he said is that a film is a metaphor. And I was like, whoa, that's such a simple way to say it. And it's really true. And the way that I look at Anomalisa is it's really kind of a condensed, like that breakfast scene is a condensed example of an entire typical relationship, like the types of relationships that we have and how they start and where they go and how they end. But it's just in that one scene.
Yeah.
This is one of the things we talked about in class a lot, was simplified metaphor. You're not actually, that's why it's fascinating to me when you say these things and talking about movies. Like that, it's not, you're not showing real life. We all know real life. You're coming up with interesting, condensed, simplified ways to show these mirrored metaphors. And that's what sort of latches on to where we can tell these stories. In the simplified versions.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the
context of how you were teaching that, or
yeah, no, because it was like, for me, a painting is even, you know, I like to think of it as sort of a one framed film, but in order to pull that off, it's every single element has to be condensed down to its root and down to its essence, and the paintings that don't pull that off, or the films that don't pull that off, or maybe just saying too much, or putting too many words. You know, it's like the whole, you're having a conversation with someone and stuttering and stumbling, and you talk for 5 minutes, and it's like, get to the point, say the root, say the essence. And that was one of the fascinating things that I remember, even from class talking to you, Duke, was the fact that, I mean, obviously other art forms do, but the fact that you were so in tune with that, the concept, and from what you were saying, pulling that from class, because I was like, why are you even taking this class? What's the point of you're making movies and this is painting and art, why would you even do this?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question too. Like, why would you be taking a painting class if you're doing film?
Yeah. I mean, for me, they overlap so much. And I always see like painting, for me, there's different ways to approach filmmaking and, all different kinds of art. There's different ways to approach, but I always approach it from a visual standpoint. Like I see, like what Casey's talking about, where, what's the film in a single image, I start getting visual ideas and seeing things first before stories develop.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
And to me, painting is sort of like the purest form of that, the purest form of storytelling. It's just,
what do you mean by that? Like the purest form? Like
the purpose of, any art is to involve an audience in an emotional experience. That's my opinion. That's how I would
communicate this sort of emotion.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, what is my perspective? What do I have to say? What makes people connect to a great piece of art is they see something that's relatable, but it's said with specificity, right? So there's a point of view, but they're talking about something that on some level everybody understands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, you can't get more specific with a point of view than, it doesn't matter if you're a good painter or a bad painter, but a brushstroke is like a fingerprint. It's a part of your soul, and it's undeniably you in some way. And if you're a great artist, you can infuse your observations from your human experience in a way that people can identify and recognize that, but it's also has a personal specificity to it,
filtered through the personality.
That makes sense.
Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Yeah. And I kind of, I don't really have a theory on that necessarily, but it's just something that I've been formulating since I've been doing the podcast and talking to a bunch of different artists, is that, for me, like, I like to do things in cross mediums. Like, I'm a photographer and I'm, going into film and then doing things with like 3D printing. And then the podcast itself is also kind of like an art form in a weird way, because it's like these conversations, communicating ideas, right? And audibly. But I think where I'm trying to get at is that they're all relatable to like how I am as a person as well, and my personal interests. And I think what you're saying is that no matter if you're painting or if you're making a film, like, that fingerprint is undeniably yours in a way, and you're right.
But I think what I mean by pure is it's more undeniably yours in a painting because you're alone in a room painting a picture.
Yeah. So you're creating something in isolation.
Exactly, and a film is collaborative. It's a collaborative experience, and it involves a lot of talented people. And certainly there's films that are like, you look at the works of like David Lynch or somebody like Kaufman, where, those are very infused with one point of view and one person's perspective.
Yeah.
But even on that level, there's still collaborations that are involved with other people. Right. And I suppose there's collaborations with painting as well, like with the model or with a photographer, but it doesn't always have to be that way. Right. You can just go in a room and close a door and paint a picture.
Right.
And I guess you could do that with a film as well, but it generally doesn't function that way.
Yeah. It's like, I see what you mean by it being the purest form. I guess like something, a photographer that comes to mind specifically is like Cindy Sherman, who does a lot of self-portraiture. So maybe in that essence, it could be more of a single point of view, as opposed to, having all these other elements creating your point of view.
This is one of the reasons why I even stuck with art as opposed to other things, like as opposed to music or even films, which I was into directing early on. I wanted to, but it would require such a large group of people that I was afraid that it would be too, just too difficult, to find. You can't just be one person. Like now you do a painting, I work on a painting. If it's a bad painting, it's my fault. If it's a good painting, it's all on me.
Yeah.
There's nothing holding you back. You're not waiting or dealing with someone else or, having to wade through the complexities of politics. Most of the time it's just canvas, paint,
I see.
Create it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
It's also kind of unlimited possibility with painting, because you really like the only materials you need are like a canvas, paint, and brushes, right?
Yeah.
And then you can do whatever. With a film, you actually need like millions of dollars a lot of the time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like with Anomalisa, we made a feature-length animated film for the cost of like what a typical animated film spends on like craft service or something, So
That's insane.
Wow.
We weren't necessarily able to do everything exactly how we wanted to, and this is like segueing into a different thing. It kind of was good in a sense because it forced us to exercise other creative muscles to find,
not rely on a budget.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think there's power in that? I always wonder, because when people eventually, like you look at musicians and even anyone in the art creative field, when they actually are able to get the financial backing that they've dreamed of, I feel like a lot of times what happens is people maybe start being less creative because there's no sort of resistance there. Maybe on a lower budget like this, I'm curious what you think about. Was it sort of, I know it's the case for me, definitely, but was there a time when it's like, we don't quite have the funds we want, we're going to have to be, necessity is the mother of creativity. You have to, therefore you pull things out of your hat the last minute maybe or whatnot.
It's I think that's everything.
Yeah.
That's everything. Like the reason Anomalisa exists. I mean, first of all, we had 1/12 of the budget to begin with.
Yeah.
And knew it wasn't enough to make the movie. And didn't know if we would get the rest, but said, we have to start or this movie won't get made. If we wait to get all the money, you wait years, whatever, but we need to make this movie, so we're just going to get started. And then for me, it's like, okay, like the storyboarding process. Like I was supposed to do it in a month, and I took like months to do it because I'm like on my own schedule, working autonomously, drawing pictures, questioning everything I'm doing, doubting everything I'm doing, second guessing everything I'm doing, redoing everything I'm doing. And that could go on infinitely. But when you're shooting, the train has left the station. Shit's happening.
Yeah.
This guy comes up, he's got a question. There's 12 people in line behind him with questions. There's things happening. And also decisions. And you don't have a choice.
Yeah. But how do you
have to
manage
make a
that
decision
on a film?
You just
do.
Your brain kicks into high gear.
Yeah.
It's like an animal, fighting for survival. You're going to starve. You're going to die. The movie, the movie has to be the best you're possibly capable of making it, or you have to be willing to die. Like that's how I look at it. Like it's just every day was a disaster, and you have to find, okay, your plan was to do this thing and have the camera over here and the character's going to walk over and everything. Okay. All that's out the window. None of that's available. You can't do that, but you still have to shoot something today. What are you going to do? And you have to decide in 5 minutes, It's like, but that's when talk spiritual. Like that's when you're a vessel for
exactly
the muse or the gods or whatever. But whatever's within you, the best stuff that's available to you comes at that time, because you're not able to second guess. You're not able to doubt. Or if you do doubt, you just go forward anyway.
Yeah.
And that's how the whole film was made, pretty much.
How many days did you film?
2 years. 2 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, like 16 hours a day for 2 years. Oh my God. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life.
That's insane.
And I don't recommend it.
Yeah. But you have such a great accomplishment now.
Why deadlines are so important. Like, without the deadlines, like this is why artists wait till the last minute to do anything.
Yeah.
Because that's when the magic happens. If it's like, okay, so you can do a show whenever you want, then the next show is going to be 15 years from now. And they're not going to be great pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I'll have 5 of them done.
Or they're going to be so perfectly painted in every way, and
Yeah.
for some reason it will be lacking a certain soul or something.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes. When the gallery calls up and they're like, "Oh, there's a huge show. We need 3 paintings by next week." Okay, I'm getting no sleep, too much coffee, but you jump into high gear and you make it work, and they're way better than anything that would have that I was even thinking of before, because it's that little magic.
But at the same time, I think you like that, Casey. I think
I only
you
like it
that.
because I know at the end, after it's over, not during, because during it's hell.
Yeah.
During you hate everything.
But I feel like
about
you
it.
like that exciting spontaneity.
That's pretty common for creative people. I
think
see.
so.
People creatives like drama.
Yeah.
They like
This is
like
true.
the stress.
This is true.
This is why it's impossible to be in a
They like to be miserable. They like to procrastinate. I mean, wait till the last minute.
Yeah. It's not because they're lazy though. That's the whole point. You're not lazy. I mean, maybe, but it's just.
I'm trying
like
to think.
you
I question that a
thrive.
lot.
You're like,
right.
But my mom. I talk to my mom. Always listen to your mom. My mom. I always talk to my mom about how lazy I am, and my mom's like, "You're not lazy. Like, look at what you've done. Look at all that you've accomplished. Look at what you continue to do. Like that's you work really hard. Like you work as hard as anybody I know. This is what my mother says to me. But it's interesting. I feel lazy because I feel like there's so much more I could be doing all the time or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just how I work. I'm most creative when I'm not at peace and I'm in a state of anxiety and stress.
It's not your typical lifestyle. It's not your typical people. I guess being surrounded by someone that's like what you're saying, like someone like you, someone like Yoshino, someone in the creative field. You have to you sort of surround yourself with a different kind of people. It's not like your normal 9 to 5 and you go home, you throw the ball game on and have a beer. This is a whole different And I found this is helpful for me, and this is what leading up to the question I was gonna ask you. Your the city you live in, where you're at, you went to New York, you went to LA, wherever. I'm not sure where you're from, like your hometown, but that is huge and inspirational. All the people, city, vibes, everything like that is huge because,
I wouldn't have it any other way, man. The people that, like I hang out with and like you, for instance, and I mean, just,
it matters.
It matters.
Yeah.
It's the people that you surround yourself with, and it's just like, I don't know, that spontaneity and I don't know, there's just something so special about it, but that you might not get on a normal 9 to 5,
Yeah.
But it's not for some people either.
Duke, where are you? What's your sort of like story background as far as where you're from?
Yeah, I'm from St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah.
And I went to an all boys Catholic high school that was very like sports oriented and stuff. And I played sports because that's what you do when you're from Missouri. Like I played football and soccer and varsity swim team and stuff. But it wasn't my passion. I was never really interested in it. And I started when I was 15. I went away to Chicago for the summer to take a film course, and I also took a sculpture course, Sculpture 101 and Film 101. That was my first because I loved movies and I loved art.
Yeah.
And that was my first experience, like picking up a camera and making a short film. But that summer was so influential on me because that summer program was full of like-minded people, which I'd never encountered in St. Louis in my environment.
Interesting.
It was so like nowadays, every high school in America has like a film class, but in my day, this is, 90, like 94, 93, something like that. There were 4 film books in our school library. And when they found out that I went away and took a film course during the summer, the school gave them to me. They're like, here, you can just have these film books.
Do you remember what they were about?
We're not going to need them.
Wow.
Yeah, they were like, there was one that was like from the 40s. That was like Bell and Howell, like camera. And I mean, it was like ridiculous books. But they were like, here, just take these. You can have our entire film department.
You're actually taking
entire
up room
film
with a lot
library.
of football books that would like to put in here.
Yeah.
But I loved that. I loved feeling
We gotta need this
like an outsider. I loved feeling like like I was unique.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But I was definitely. I never found like-minded people in St. Louis. It was only when I left to go to Chicago that summer, and then the next summer I did a New York Film Academy at Princeton. It was another thing. And then I went to NYU, and that was like, oh, it was like New York, and everybody's creative,
So cool.
and extremely culturally diverse, and it was amazing. Like my whole world just opened up in New York, and I fell deeply in love with New York. And I hated LA.
Sometimes
I miss it all the time. Well, it's funny. They say you live in New York and leave before it makes you hard, and live in LA, leave before it makes you soft. So I love New York, huge hardcore New Yorker. Like I'm a New Yorker. And then I come to LA and I'm like, this is bullshit. Like beaches and sitting in your car. Like I hate this, right? Yeah. Now I go back to New York and I'm like, where are all these people going? And it's so crowded and there's people on the streets and I just kind of can't wait to get back to LA because I'm so soft now. Like I just love the laid back atmosphere of LA.
Yeah. It's funny how you adapt to your situation.
You
like
really
that,
do,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Casey, do you share the same sentiment?
Oh, everything you're saying is exactly what I went through. Exactly. I'm from Georgia, in a little tiny high school where they care about football and basketball.
Yeah.
And the art class that I took, I ended up teaching because the teacher didn't have a clue what they were doing. And so then it's like,
interesting.
Then it goes into New York and you get to New York, Boston first and then back down, blah, blah, blah. But then was like, the point
the East Coast.
East Coast. Going to New York for the first time was like, oh my God, I'm not weird for hating football. They're weird. Football's fine, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a lifestyle and everything there's fine. I grew up there, my family's there, but it was not for me.
But you were just the outsider at that time.
I was the outsider thinking that I was the weird one. And until I got to New York for the first time, it was the first time I realized, like, oh God, like I feel at home. I actually feel at home, more at home here.
Everyone's weird here.
Than my home, right? So it's the same exact thing.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just haven't made the jump to LA yet, so I'm still stuck on New York at the moment.
Well, I think New York is it's probably more ideal for a painter. I would love, everybody says the object's to be bi-coastal. I would love to be. I would love to have a place in New York. I mean, I definitely love New York because the culture and the art there is amazing. I love the ballet, and I used to have season tickets to the ballet when I lived in New York, and we don't have the symphony. There's so many great things that we don't really have in LA.
They have good karaoke in New York too.
We have that. We have Koreatown.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
Chinatown has some pretty good karaoke.
Yeah, we went to Little Tokyo to do the karaoke.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was thoroughly embarrassed because everyone was do you know Hannah Vandermolen, a mutual friend of ours?
She modeled for the first class, the oil painting class, not the second model.
Yeah. So Hannah and my friend Jarrell, and who's a singer, and then Casey, and then everyone was like so good. And I was just like, oh man, this is interesting. But it was a fun experience.
Well, speaking of, I was going to say, you reminded me, speaking of music, I was going to ask you, Duke, if there are any sort of side hobby things that are also creative that you do. I ask this because for me, music and music writing is sort of my therapy. From paint to painting, I have to get away from it. And I'm wondering, do you completely engulf yourself in the world of film? Or do you have things you have to sort of do and get away from?
Yeah, no, definitely. I go through hobbies, and they sort of come and go. I get obsessed with something, but it's very important. I feel to have another outlet, but I got obsessed with like ukulele.
Nice.
I learned how to play the ukulele, and then I started collecting ukuleles, and then I don't know. I kind of got bored with that, and I got into mopeds for a minute, and
cool.
I got over that, and stuff like that. But the thing that I've always wanted to come back to, which is why I took your classes, was, I always painted when I was younger, and I've always done, charcoal sketches and stuff.
Right.
And I even did some, I have them here actually, I'll show you afterwards, of character designs for Anomalisa. And I just have always really wanted to get back into that, but it's really intimidating because the style with which you paint is like, it's intimidating. Somebody has to teach you just the practical elements of how to do it. And also the things to think about. I mean, I learned so much in your class. Like I know I'm bouncing all over the place, but this is just something I've been thinking about because I was looking at all this stuff on the internet, but the way you talk about, I mean, obviously values and things like that, but the way you talked about proportion and kind of like how you just, like, you have to get that right, and then you can go as crazy as you want. The colors can be wrong, things can just be all over the place, but like if everything's kind of in the spot where it's supposed to be,
right value, then you can go crazy with it.
Exactly. And I kind of heard it, and it didn't really necessarily sink in, but then I'm looking at paintings online and crazy stuff, and you can see when it works and when it doesn't. And it's like, if things are in the right place and they have the right value, it can be like made with thumbprints and smudges, and it looks like a face. It looks like a person. And I was thinking about that, how true that is for film as well. Because it's like, the film can be about, monkeys that take over Mars, and, it could be the craziest, most unrelatable circumstance. But if, like, the interactions between the characters are observational in an authentic way, or they're specific in an authentic way to how humans are, like if the emotional experience is authentic,
right,
then you can go as crazy as you want, and people will connect to that, and they will go along for that ride.
Wow, that's really interesting. So is that the way that you look at creating narratives?
Yeah. I mean, it's study and creating it's always modulated with, like, just gut. A lot of creating that I do is intuitive.
Yes.
The majority of it is intuitive, even composition and framing. You study framing, golden medians, all that stuff.
Rule of three.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that stuff sinks in and stuff. But then what I find myself more often than not doing is I set up a frame, and then I'm just like, it just feels like it needs to be over here.
Yes.
It just feels like it. And then, you learn things like about perspective, or so you hear something and it just clicks and kind of confirms and reinforces what you feel on the inside, what you connect with. Creatively
builds the confidence, so you feel you can trust yourself with the instinct. Wait,
exactly. I want to explore that thought really quick. That you're saying that it could be about whatever, like the film could be about monkeys in space or whatever, something crazy, but yet if there's some sort of human element that you can connect with, then that's what helps, like, fuel the narrative. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, if by narrative you mean the story.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I think there's elements to every good film. There's, like, the story, there's the plot, right? And I guess the narrative, the story, is really the journey of the characters. Like what is their emotional story?
Interesting.
And I think that the plot can be kind of as extreme or as simple. For example, as simple, like Anomalisa is a guy that spends a night in a hotel room in Cincinnati and then flies home.
Yeah, on paper, that's what it is.
That's the plot of the movie.
Yeah.
But the story, the emotional journey of his character is kind of epic, at least for him. What he's going through, what he wants. He has something that he wants, and he's going after that. But I think even then, even if you have a want that's relatable, you still have to have these moments. These sort of, or at least what to me stands out about a film that makes it great is, like, you have these moments that are observational of just the human experience, just the way that little details that everybody can relate to, that makes you connect and makes you go, I feel like that's me. Like that's saying something about me. This movie, this person made this movie across the world. I've never met this person, but that speaks to me directly, and that comes from somebody, that comes from being honest. That's what it is. It's honesty.
Yeah.
Looking at your looking at yourself, looking at your human experience, and being honest.
Scary a lot of times to do.
It's very brave.
From a creative point of view.
Yeah.
Because you're opening your soul for people to see.
Exactly.
It's that vulnerability.
Very vulnerable. And it's like, well, people like what they're seeing, whether they like me being honest.
Yeah. And people will attack you for that too.
Sure,
Some people, because they won't get it, or they'll, whatever.
Someone's going to like it, someone's going to hate it.
Exactly.
Every art field. There's no one movie, one band, one song, one painting that everyone loves.
Yeah. But thank God for that, because, that yields to more variety within the arts.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's also the things that the majority of people love. It's homogenized to the point where you like it.
Very watered down.
You can't not like it, but it's not.
But you don't love it.
It's not going to change your life. It's not going to haunt you. Yeah. I want to be haunted.
Yeah.
I want to see a painting or watch a movie and be haunted by it.
Mm.
That's what I seek. And that's rare.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That was the thing too for me, like you mentioned Eternal Sunshine. First time I saw that, I couldn't watch another movie for a week, and it was like I was in this crazy headspace and like thinking about my relationship at the time, and that kind of stuff will stick with you.
I felt that way about adaptation. If we're talking about Charlie Kaufman films.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was like that movie literally hit me in the gut, and I was actually watching it when I was in Southeast Asia, and I was traveling, and I think I was just watching it like on my phone, and then I had to watch it another time. But just some films and just some great art just can hit you like that, and you're just like when I look at a Francis Bacon piece in person, you stare at it, and I feel the same way about like Patrick Graham's work if we're talking about painting, but you just stare at it and you're like, I don't know why I'm really drawn to this, but man, it's affecting me in some odd way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me ask one deep question.
Yeah.
That I don't want to be asked, but why? I'm just curious why. Like, what's the drive for making movies? Besides, again, maybe it's just. I'm just gonna ask the question. You wake up in the morning, you're like, all right.
To get the ladies, man. No. No,
I literally almost spit out my coconut water when you said that, dude.
People have asked, this question a lot. Why do you paint? What's the point? What are you doing? Why do you do it though?
I think that it's hard to sum up verbally. I think there's a combination. I think that there's elements of ego, of a desperate wanting to feel like you have something to say, something to contribute, or wanting to be seen. But it starts from a point of, I'm a kid and I'm running around and I'm living my life and I'm looking at things and I'm just absorbing everything. I'm a sponge and I'm watching movies and I'm watching TV shows, and then something happens and I watch a movie and it clicks and it just hits me. It hits me in the chest and it haunts me, and I'm moved by something. I'm like, what is this? This thing that somebody created, it moved me, and I don't decide in that moment that I want to make movies, but that feeling just stays with me, and it becomes cumulative over time. And I realize that that's a very, very powerful thing. Art has a powerful impact on our collective unconscious. It has a huge cultural impact on you can change the world.
Absolutely.
With art.
Yeah.
Very universal.
Absolutely.
Too.
Yeah.
You can speak to pretty much anyone on this planet who has eyes.
Yeah.
And with film, it could be translated, so it's the same basic concept.
Yeah. So, it starts with being inspired and then just being compelled, driven to make art. And then I fell in love with, for me, it was, I love art. It was always art, this word art. Well, what is art? Art is sculpture and painting and drawing and, building little models and whatever. It's a huge spectrum. I was just like, it was art, but I didn't find what is my thing. Am I going to be a painter? I like to paint, but then I look at these amazing painters and it seems so like I could never achieve that or whatever. And then one day, for me, I picked up a camera and it just clicked. And that was, that's my medium. That's what I'm going to use to tell stories.
I think one of the things I've sort of gotten from this conversation is the fact that it's very inspiring, validating and inspiring to hear the path you've taken, starting off where you're from, getting out against odds. And there's a bit of luck involved in all this too. But at the same time, you have this sort of determination and drive to get there. Going to New York, yes, you're waiting tables and you bump into someone and you come out of the thing saying, I will direct a movie. It's not like you're not starting off. It is about connections, but it's also about like your drive to do this. And it took 10 years for that to happen, but now you're doing it. And it's kind of cool to see, because a lot of times I feel like the people are a little discouraged or think that it requires things that it doesn't. It's just like, be passionate, do it. You will figure it out. It's just passion and determination.
And that's the truth. And if you are spiritual, which I am, so it's just what I believe.
Yeah.
The desire is everything. The passion is everything, because those connections that you need to have will be drawn to you.
Yeah.
You will make those connections.
You make luck.
Exactly.
On your side,
I mean, it's not
in a way.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence that we're sitting here and, that you and I have met and we've hit it off and we've become friends. I was drawn to your work. I was inspired by you, and we were drawn to each other. I mean, that's how connections are made.
No, and that's what I was saying earlier about the gravitational pull. And I feel like things are meant to happen for
no
a reason,
blind luck.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there is luck involved at points, but I think it's just like sometimes things just need to happen, and they just happen in this weird way, and the universe gives you something beautiful, and you just have to accept it. You can't control, and I guess that's why in Anomalisa, like bringing it back, I think that's why that one scene at the table really resonated with me. It's like he was trying to control her actions in this way, but yet in life, you can't control things that happen to you, or you can't control other people. You just have to accept like things for what it is, and you have to exist within that space and find yourself within that space.
And be passionate and determined.
Yeah.
And sing lots of karaoke.
Never give up. Just keep going. Keep doing it.
Never give up.
Yeah, man.
It's like that great Ira Glass quote where he talks about the gap. You guys know that quote?
No, I don't. I love Ira Glass though.
He talks about how there's the thing where it's a long quote, so I have to super paraphrase it, but it's basically about how nobody tells people when they're starting out that the reason you hate the stuff that you're producing is because of your taste. Like, you have taste. That's the only thing you really need is taste. You don't need ability. You don't need skill. You just need taste and a desire. Because as long as you keep doing it, the gap between your taste and your ability will get closer and closer and closer. And eventually they'll meet up and you'll start producing things that you like.
Yeah.
You just have to stick with it and keep doing it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well,
I love that,
they
man.
might, maybe the way I think in my own tacking onto that, it's always a carrot and stick thing a little bit. Because if they do meet up, then you're sort of satisfied with the taste slowly grows a little bit too as you grow and learn.
Yeah.
And then your abilities catch up to that. But then you're already another step ahead mentally where it's like, well, I want to make something even better now. My taste is more refined, right?
Yeah, no, that's true. I agree with that 100%. Yeah. Complacency is like the death of creativity. Yes. Yeah. You don't want to get comfortable. I love quotes. I absorb everything. I listen to all the stuff he said. I'm always looking on Facebook. I love taking things that I can use.
Me too. It's all about self-improvement.
Yeah.
In this weird way.
There's this great one, David Bowie, I just saw, where he talks about how important it is to go further than what you're comfortable with. I mean, just the simple idea, if you're comfortable, you're not going to be doing your best work. Like, push yourself to the point where your feet barely touch the ground and you're not sure you're going to be okay in this space, and that's when you'll do something good.
This is why I love New York City. At no point are you sitting around thinking, oh, this is so chill.
Yeah.
So comfortable. As you breathe 100-degree trash floating through the air.
Yeah.
People are honking at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, and maybe that's the danger of LA because it is easy to be comfortable here. Mm-hmm. This is a pretty chill place. People are pretty easygoing.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of food and it's good to be healthy. And I don't know. I mean, it's like, there's the beach. I don't know.
Yeah. It's the beach. Don't go to the beach.
Yeah. I want to be in
That's the
pain.
biggest takeaway from this conversation. Don't go to the beach.
I want to be where it's cold and I have to wear layers and I want to be in the rain.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and doing this, man. I really appreciate you being here, and Casey, you as well.
This has been
making
great.
Making this a possibility.
Yeah, it's been great. Looking forward to new stuff coming up from Duke, and excited to hear what this actually is going to sound like.
Hopefully it'll be edited down to 5 minutes.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Yoshino, for having us on.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Thanks.
All right.
And awesome. Cut.